Yokoso owashitare. And today's story is quite the story. And disclaimer right out the gate, please do not watch this with your children nearby. This definitely features some very inappropriate content, shall we say, but it's the ancient Japan. They had different culture, different values, different customs. Just take my word for it. Don't watch it with the kids around. I will try to be as euphemistic as possible, but there's only so much that I can get away with because it just well, you'll see. Anyway, it is about an ancient Japanese thing, so if you like ancient Japanese culture, ancient Japanese history, or you like storytelling in general, please don't forget to like the video. Please subscribe to the channel as well. And with all of that being said, let's get into it. Once upon a time, ima wa mukashi, there was a man from the capital, and he was currently headed from the capital out into the provinces. Where was he going? Well, the text itself says that it doesn't know. What was his name? Also don't know. Why was he going out into the provinces? No clue. But suffice to say, as he was a denizen of the capital, it was very likely that he was somewhat of high standing, probably in the nobility, but not super high up in the nobility. But for whatever reason, he was heading out into the countryside, out into the provinces. And along the way, he happened to be passing through a certain village. And as he was passing through this village, he was suddenly seized upon by libido, by a lust that he had never experienced in his life before. So powerful was this need that it started becoming a bit of a problem for him. Specifically, the text describes it as he started feeling like he was one of those people who goes crazy for women. And at first he just tried to brush it off. I mean, he's in the middle of travel, he's on his horse. It would be a pain in the butt to go deal with this problem because he's in the middle of something else. So he tried to put it out of his mind, just no, I'll calm down, it'll go away, I'll just leave it alone. But as he kept going, it got stronger and stronger and stronger. And he was just beside himself with how intense this desire to do the dirty was in his mind. Like he couldn't get it out of his head. Oh my gosh, it was just too much. And so, looking around to see what options he had, he noticed that by the road that they were currently on, there was a fence. And on the other side of that fence was a big vegetable patch. Now, it just so happened that it was in the latter part of the 10th month, and it was basically harvest time. And because of that, all of the vegetables in this field had been growing very full, very thick, and there was a lot of them. And specifically, he noticed that there was a patch of turnips, kabu as they're called in Japanese. And so he went over to this fence, got off of his horse, went into the fence, pulled out one particularly big turnip, bore a hole into it, and then he sated his lust with this turnip. Oh boy. And then having finished with the turnip, no pun intended, but oh geez. Having finished with this turnip, he then, he wasn't going to do anything with it. It's not like he was going to take it home and, cook it, so he just chucked it off to the side, whatever. And then he fixed himself up, he exited the fence, and then he got up on his horse, and he continued along his way, having now dealt with that big libido issue that had been assaulting him. But it gets better, because it also just so happened that not long after this, probably in the very same day, the owner of this vegetable patch, because again, it was late 10th month, it was harvest time. It was time to go get the veg. And so, the master of this vegetable patch gathered a bunch of women servants together, and he took them all out to the vegetable patch to go get vegetables. Now, it also just so happens that within this group of servant women, there was a young girl about 15 years old. And when she was sent out into the vegetable patch to go harvest some veg, she decided that she wanted to go get the spot kind of close to the fence, kind of around in that area. And it does a very good job of actually characterizing this girl. She was all innocence and cheer. She didn't just go walking out to this vegetable patch. It literally says, arukite asobikeru, which aruku means to walk and asobu means to play. So she was more like skipping through the fields, skipping through the vegetable patch. She was just such a happy, innocent girl. And of course, as she's gathering vegetables, she notices a certain turnip that was not where it normally should be. And being curious, she went over and she looked at it. She picked it up and she turned it around. She noticed there was a big hole in it. Huh, that's weird. I wonder what that could be. And again, being the cheerful girl that she was, she kind of played around with it a little bit, probably tossed it up in the air, was like, oh, this is interesting, wow, neato, I've never seen a turnip like this before. And then, I guess because it wasn't in the ground, but it looked perfectly fine, she actually pulled out a knife, she carved off some of the less appetizing bits of it, and then she consumed it. Just gobble it down. Out of second thought, no worry as to the contents of the inside, and no worry like, where did this come from? Why was it here? Why was there a big hole in it? I guess she didn't care. She just nom nom. And then having finished this little snack of hers, finished gathering the vegetables, she went back over with the rest of the servant women, and together everybody went to their various houses. Now, it wasn't long after this that this girl started feeling ill. And she started feeling so ill, in fact, that she refused to eat food, which was unusual. Again, she was a bright, chipper, bubbly young girl, and usually had somewhat of an appetite. And so when her parents saw this unusual behavior from her, they were, understandably, a little bit concerned. But after examining her and checking everything out, they couldn't tell what was wrong. She didn't really have a fever. She didn't have any other symptoms. She didn't have a runny nose, or she wasn't coughing. She wasn't sneezing. Everything looked fine. She just insisted that she did not feel well. Which is why, even though the kids aren't here, please inform your kids that if they do find turnips laying on the ground with mysterious holes bored into them, don't eat them. Don't eat random food off of the floor, okay? But anyway, this girl not feeling well, her condition continued for a couple of months. And after a couple of months had passed, everybody started noticing that she was growing right around in the midsection, exactly like she was with child. Which again would explain her unwell feeling. She had morning sickness all the time. Now, of course, her parents were astounded by this, and they immediately came to her in an accusatory manner and began questioning her. What happened? What did you do? Have you been bringing men around here without us knowing about it? Have you been going behind our backs to spend time with the opposite sex? But she insisted. She said, no, absolutely not. I haven't had men around here at all. Nowhere even close to me. But there was one thing that was really weird. That day where we went out to go collect vegetables, I happened to find a turnip with a hole in it, and I thought it was amusing, and because I couldn't collect it for obvious reasons, I decided that I was going to eat it then and there, and ever since that day, I've been not feeling well, just like I am now. Now you can imagine that her parents, when hearing this explanation, didn't really buy it. Like, okay, you ate a turnip, and now you're pregnant? Okay, sure. And so they decided to go around to the rest of the house and ask the other servants, hey, my daughter's pregnant for some reason. Have you guys seen or heard any sign of men coming around here to spend their time with her at all? Have you noticed anything? But consistently, every single one of these other servants insisted, I haven't seen a single thing. Not even a whisper of men coming around here. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And so now this girl's parents were even more incredulous. Like, hold on. If there really was a man coming around here, somebody would have seen him. Like, there's no way. There's no way he could have come in and done the deed with our daughter probably multiple times without anybody else in the house seeing. So they couldn't make heads or tails of it. So with no other option, they just continued along as usual. And the months passed, and eventually the time for this girl came, and she gave birth to a very healthy, surprisingly noble-looking young boy without any complications. Everything went off swell. And with no other options, and with this boy being hearty and hale and really good looking actually, they figured, well, we might as well continue to raise him. And they did just that. Now, a few years later, the man who began this whole thing, the turnip guy, we'll call him, his time in the provinces ended, and he was now on his way back to the capital. And of course, he was taking the same road back to the capital that he used going away from the capital. Only this time, he had a couple of buddies with him. There was a whole party, and they were all going back to the capital together. And it just so happened that as he was passing by this very same fence and the very same house, it was once again in the late 10th month. It was harvest time. And as he was passing by, the family, well, all except the girl because she was inside taking care of the kid, but the mother of this young girl, although I say young girl even though a few years had passed, so she was now more in the range of 20, but the mother of this girl was out in the fields collecting vegetables with everybody else. And as this turnip guy was passing by this fence, he looked over and he recognized it, and he remembered what happened that day. And I guess he was feeling a bit braggadocious that day because he was surrounded by a bunch of his bro friends and getting caught up in the moment and just joking and having a good time with them and just being silly. he noticed that fence and he exclaimed in a very loud voice so everybody around him could hear, "Oh man, I remember that year I was passing by this very same fence. That's the fence, bro. That's the fence. Bro, let me tell you, when I would pass by this fence last time, I don't know why, but I suddenly wanted..." And then he uses a term for female anatomy. So he's literally talking like some dude bro from modern times, like, "I want lady bits." Again, I'm sorry, please don't watch this with the kids around. But oh man, I just really wanted some blah blah. Really so bad I could barely stand it, dude. I couldn't stand it. It was so bad, bro. It was so down bad. So I went on the other side of that fence, yo. I went on the other side of that fence, and then I found this big old turnip, okay? Found a huge turnip, and I just like bored a hole into it, and I got myself off with that turnip, bro. It was like crazy. It was crazy. So, bro, so stupid. It's so funny. Like, bro. And then I just like took it and then I just threw it off to the side because like I'm not going to take no stupid dirty turnip home with me. No, man. And again, he's just going on in a really obnoxious, loud sort of way. Now, his friends weren't the only one who heard this story. Because he was speaking so loudly, his voice traveled all the way across the fence and over to where the girl's mom was working. And she heard it loud and clear. And she remembered what her daughter said about eating a strange turnip with a hole inside of it. And so when she realized what was going on, she immediately dropped her tools and she ran out of the fence and beelined it straight for this guy. And she started yelling, "What did you say? What did you say?" Now the man was not expecting this, and his first thought was, "Oh crap, she's gonna come at me and claim that I stole a turnip and she's gonna demand some kind of recompense from me. Oh, I really don't want to deal with this lady." And so he looked at her and said, "Nah, lady, hold on, I was joking, okay? I was just joking, okay?" And then he tried to get away. He did everything in his power to get ahead and not have to deal with this lady because he didn't want to deal with what he thought was an ancient Japanese Karen. But this woman, with her voice cracking and in a sincere, earnest manner, pleaded with him, "No, my lord, it's not that. There's something super important. I just have to confirm. Please tell me what happened. Please." And she began crying. Now, this threw the man off a little bit. Like, nobody's gonna cry over one stolen turnip. And so he just doubled down on what he was saying before. "Look, lady, I didn't do anything. I didn't steal your turnip. I was just saying stuff because I was surrounded by my bros and I just wanted to be funny. Okay, I was just up in the moment and I just wanted to make them laugh a little bit with some silly story, okay? I didn't do anything." But this woman just kept insisting that it had nothing to do with him stealing a turnip, and she begged him, "Please come to my house, I have something I want to show you." And reluctantly, the man did agree, and he went with this woman to her house, and she brought him inside and she sat him down. And there she explained the whole story, how her daughter had found this turnip, had eaten it, and suddenly become pregnant and given birth to a beautiful baby boy several years ago. And so this woman simply told him, "I want to bring the boy out to meet you, and I want to sit him beside you, and I want you to look at him and yourself, and tell me if you believe he is yours." And she did. She brought the boy out, who at this point was about 5 years or so old. She sat him down next to this guy, and this guy looked at this kid, and everybody else in the house looked at both of them, and they were spitting images of each other. They looked almost exactly the same. It was very, very clear that this boy was this man's son. And not only was the man astounded by this, but he was supremely moved by it too. He had a son. He didn't know anything about this before, but all of a sudden he's got a son. Whoa! And he didn't really know what to say. He just kind of thought out loud, "What kind of karmic destiny have I brought upon myself? What am I supposed to do in this situation?" And the woman, the mother's mother, the grandmother to this kid, simply told him, "Well, you should do as you see fit. What do you think you should do?" And after thinking about it for a second, the man said, "Bring the mother out to me. I want to meet her." And they did. They brought her out. And even though technically she was low-born, she was a peasant, she was very, very pretty. And at this point, about 20 years old, right at the time when a woman would normally get married. And looking at this kid who was also now about 5 years old, and a very good-looking, regal-looking kid, like he had inherited a certain level of nobility from his father and the good looks from his mother, and this man started thinking, "You know, I was on my way back to the capital, because that's where everybody wants to be, but I actually don't have any parents, I don't have any family. I don't have any really good friends who live in the capital. I was just going there because I have nowhere else to go. However, given the situation, and the machinations of fate seemingly, it seems like I am meant to be here. So, why don't I take this woman as my wife, be here to raise my son, and just spend the rest of my days here at this house? And so, he did exactly that. He told this woman, hey, I want to marry your daughter officially, and I will stay here with my new wife and my son. Which was great, because that means that this family now had a noble patron, somebody with connections to the capital who could look after their interests, and this woman now had a husband who could help take care of her, and the family had somebody there for them, and this man now had a beautiful wife and a child. And so, win-win, happy ending. Even though the start was really, really, really weird. And then the text muses on this a little bit, explaining that this is an extremely unusual and wondrous occurrence. And thus is it said, that without man and woman coming together, the woman conceived and gave birth to a son. And that is the end of this story. I don't really have anything in the way of cultural commentary. I'll leave that up to you guys out in the comments because I'm sure a lot of you have some things to say. Some things to say. Oh boy. So, if you enjoyed that story, please don't forget to like the video and please subscribe to the channel because there are plenty more stories where that came from. Now, I can't promise that any of them are going to be so salacious and awkward. Most of them are going to be okay to listen to with the kids around. Not that that's a guarantee. These aren't specifically made for kids, but I try to keep them as PG rated as I possibly can, but then sometimes there are stories like this where it's not gonna happen, and so please, listener/viewer discretion advised. But with all that being said, if you've been watching up to this point, I thank you sincerely. Ito katajike no koso haberi kere, and hopefully we'll see you next time when we go over a story about somebody who against all odds survives multiple disasters back to back to back. Anyway, thanks again, and we'll see you later. Goodbye, everybody.